One of the best things about traditional art is getting new materials. It's so much fun to go in an art store or a stationery store and look for pens and other materials. And what's really nice about art materials is also that every time like I find a new favorite pen or brush pen or something, I feel like my art style changes a little bit because it challenges me to, or it forces me to draw in a different way. And I kind of miss that experience with digital art. You can go into like the Procreate default brushes, and there are so many brushes. And every now and then I need like a brush for a specific purpose, but uh, yeah, and I find something in the default set and I love it, and I kind of get the same experience. But I had an idea that it would be so much fun to create my own brushes instead and try that as like a little art project. And maybe it will feel like shopping for new materials. So I'm gonna collect my favorite pens and art materials traditionally, and then I'm gonna try and make like a digital version of them. I don't know how this will go, and I've never done this before, but I think it could be a cool video. So let's try it. Wow, I know, luxurious. And yes, I am sitting on the sofa still because my home is a mess. um, but yeah, these are my favorite pens, or some of my favorite pens that I've picked out. Also, look at this Snoopy, isn't it cute? I got this from Gongcha Hall, and I cut off the thing. It was like a lid for a straw. Anyways, I got some of my favorite pens that I like to use, and I think I'm gonna swatch them and I don't know, try and make like assets that I can use in Procreate to create brushes. But I think I will have to go to the library to do this because I don't really have anywhere to sit. And so my home is a mess. So I'll see you at the library and I'll see what I do with all these pens. I don't know where to put the. Maybe here so you can see the cat from my shirt. It's the next day. I ended up going to the library yesterday. I stayed there for like, I think 4 hours or something, and I was working on the brushes, and it was surprisingly easy, I would say, but also it took more time than I anticipated. So I went back today, didn't record that. I just figured I might just continue working on it, and I created some more stuff, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I didn't create all of the brushes that I took pictures of because I didn't really feel that I needed to. Like, at least in terms of my workflow, the brushes that I've created are like enough. So right now my iPad is charging, but once it's done charging, I'm gonna show you what I've created and how I plan on using the brushes. So see you then. Bye bye. So as I kind of showed but didn't really talk about, I've been using this Muji sketchbook. It was super cheap, I think, and also it has like really nice smooth paper. And on top of that, like I guess I'm a weeb or something because I'm obsessed with Japan. So just the fact that it's from Muji, I was like, ooh, that's so aesthetic. Also, look at the aesthetic Intel sticker. But yeah, um, and as I was painting digitally, trying to recreate these brushes, I felt like there was something missing, and I realized that it was actually like the texture of the paper. And so I also took some pictures of just like, let me show you, like empty sheets. Yeah, it's an empty sheet, because it has some like, yeah, texture to it. And I photographed it. I sent it to my iPad, and yeah, it was really easy to import to Procreate and use it as a texture. So that's what I did. So after my trip to the library yesterday, I ended up making this sheet. It's probably going to be mirrored, or actually, I don't know. And basically I just try to swatch every pen. Most of them I just made like a dot, as you can see, but some of them I also made like splotches like this. Let's see if it will focus on the paper. And also some like shapes. So for example, with this one, the dots were so small and it was kind of hard to photograph. So I made some triangles because I really like triangle nibs, at least like digitally. I think it looks less digital when it's not like a perfect circle that you paint with. And some of the ones that I really liked were like the style. I don't remember what the marker, but this one, like the gray marker, I think this one turned out really nice. I wanted to recreate that. And this Pentel brush pen. So I'll show you how it turned out on my iPad. Oh, transition! Okay, I'm recording my iPad, and I don't know if this commentary is gonna add to it, but I guess this is the way I will try to do it. So these are the brushes that I have right now. That I created. As you can see, I didn't use all of them because like the ones that are big dots are the ones that I kind of experimented with using, and the ones that are just small dots, they are yeah, just the imports that I didn't end up using, I guess. So I'm going to show you, for example, for this Artline drawing system that I ended up using, how I made it. So first and foremost, I sent myself a photo. A very high quality photo, but I think it's high quality enough, like even though it looks really blurry. I changed, sorry, that's the coffee machine. Let's wait for her to turn off. Okay, so I imported the photo that I sent to myself on my iPad, as you can see here. Let's just redo it once just to show how it was done. I duplicate this one. I picked the select tool, and I'm using the automatic option, and I selected the background. And using 3 fingers, I swipe up and I click cut. And then I hide the layer underneath, and it turns out like really crunchy. And with a black background, it looks like this. And then you click on the layer and you click invert to make it white. I don't know if you have to do this because I later figured out that you can like invert brushes when you're creating them, but actually that doesn't make sense, whatever. But this is how I did it. And then I would like select a nib that I would like. So with like the freehand tool. For example, this one I really like because it has like that shape. But let's do this one just because I haven't used it. So then I will swipe up with 3 fingers, click copy. And then in my layers, I create a new layer and 3 fingers swipe up and paste. And then I would just stretch it. You can fit it to canvas, but I like to make it like a little bit smaller and centered. So let's see here. I don't know if these alignment tools are always there, but I clicked here on the snapping and I used the regular snapping to make it like snap to the center. And then I would export this. So let's do that. Export as PNG and save image. And I would, as you can see here, like I exported like this nib and this one. I guess it only did these 2 for this brush in particular, whatever. And I did this for like a bunch of them. So for the Pentel one, like here's another version of it, and here's another one. But this one I really liked. And I would do that. And then in another document, let's create a screen-sized paper. I would open here in my brushes, and you can pick like a brush that you like. So for example, this monoline. And then on the shape, I clicked edit, import a photo, and I picked my brush here. And if it doesn't look right, you can click with 2 fingers and it inverts the image. So I guess you didn't have to invert it before. You could use a white background, but I don't know. This is how I did it, okay? And then you click confirm, and you can already start testing this brush. Now I did edit my default monoline, which probably is stupid, but yeah. I never use that brush, so personally. So that's how I went through and created like all of the brush heads. And then for the texture, I went into the grain option. I used texturized. The difference is like if you have a moving texture, it will like align to the path. So like, yeah, if your texture is like a snake, I think this is how it works. Maybe I'm lying a little bit, but like if you have a picture of a snake as your texture, it will like curve the snake along your line. But if you have a texturized, it kind of becomes just a repeating pattern. So then you would have like a tiled snake, kind of like how old Pokemon games, like it's the same grass over and over stamped, if that makes sense. And as for the paper texture, since it kind of has to tile, I use the texturized option. Then I click edit, import a photo, and I used the photo from my paper like this. And there's also a really cool feature in Procreate that I didn't know. That was called auto repeat, where you can like make if you have an image that doesn't perfectly tile, kind of like my paper, you can make it tile using this. And you can play with different settings like rotating it or changing like how it tiles on the borders. And then you can use that to create a texture. And then I played around with some of the settings, obviously, and like basically all of the settings. I've been at least trying them, but most of them I don't really care about. And then save. And now when I paint, like you can see that there's still this texture, or this texture is like underneath the pen. So that's what I've been doing, playing around with different settings and all of the dynamics and everything of the pens to create or try and recreate the tools that I like, or at least like the aspects of the tools that I like. And this is like the first time that I'm doing this, so obviously they aren't perfect, but it was, I think it's still, I'm very proud of what I've done at least. So I'm gonna tour you some of the brushes now. See you in a second. It's the next day again, and yeah, basically I recorded everything and I've been editing it. And when I came to the iPad recording part, I don't know what's up with my iPad. I have an older iPad Pro. Yeah, basically the recording turned out like mostly frozen. Like some of it is a video, and then after like some mark, it starts being like just a picture. So I have to redo all of it, and I will try and like make smaller clips, and maybe that will make the video more stable. So let's try this again. Also, excuse my hair. I woke up today and I tried to edit the video, so I haven't done much. The sketchbook brushes, basically, these are like textures that I think could be nice to use as backgrounds to make your art look more traditional digitally, or at least like less flat. So for this one, it might not look like much, but if you zoom in, you can see that it has like a fine grain to it, which I think is really nice, either for coloring or for just having as a background texture. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, considering that I just took like a photo and imported it. But as you can see, like it turns out like a little bit lighter than the color that you actually pick. So if I pick like a darker color like this one, you can see that it will be way lighter than the color that I have selected. I think it turned out like this, like if you want to learn from my mistakes, I think it turned out like this because I didn't edit the texture to be like a middle value gray. So like in between black and white, like the most middle gray. I think if the value of the texture is around that area, you will get like a true color to what you picked, perhaps. Or maybe it has to be all the way to white, but in my case, because I just took a picture of the paper, I didn't edit it, and then imported it as like a grain for the brush, I think that is why it doesn't like pick the actual color that you have picked, if that makes sense. And for me, that doesn't really matter, because I'm going to use it as paper anyways, like I'm not coloring with it. But yeah, if you're trying to make texture brushes, I think you should. That is something that I've learned from this. So apart from that, I also made one called Sketchbook Cover. And this one, I don't love. I don't hate it either, but I think it has like a very specific use case, because it, as you can see, it's like a very grainy texture. It almost looks like asphalt or like pavement. But I think if you're blending something, Or maybe if you want to like create a gradient and you don't want it to be like a perfect gradient, it could be a nice way to like add texture to that. So I don't think it's like a useless brush. It's just, yeah, it was kind of fun to play with also, to like try and use all of the textures of the sketchbook. And yeah, I think I can get some use out of it. So that's why I've swatched this here. And then I actually made one called Drawing System Fine. And it's like a fine line pen. It's from the, I think it was called Art Drawing System or something like that. Art Line Drawing System, I think the pen was called. And what I really like about this brush is that the one that I used actually has like the same tooth as how it turned out. So if I zoom in all the way and make the brush a little bit bigger, you can see that if I just make a dot, it has this like, yeah, it looks like a fortune cake or something, fortune cookie. But when you write with it, you get this like nice, you can tell that the brush is a little dry, and also that you get this like nice effect here on the bottom that is like curved. So if I write with it, like, I think it was called Art Line Drawing System. That's what it looks like. And if I make like a fast line, you can see it gets thinner with speed, kind of as if it was like a dry brush. And if you make like a slow line, it's not very stabilized. You can turn on the streamline if you would prefer, but I like my brushes like this. And if you make it like a little thinner over here, I think what I would use this for typically is like line art. So if I turned the opacity all the way up, I would use this maybe like after I've colored my piece and I want to like add focus to an area or like outline a character or something so that it pops. I would probably use this brush as a liner for that. Let's pause the recording again. Maybe this is the way to do it, I don't know. I haven't really used my iPad for recording before, but I think it's not as easy as it should be. It's probably because I have an old iPad, but then also I'm thinking like most of my programs are working, and it was an expensive piece of hardware, so you would think that it would work, right? Whatever. The next brush, I think this is one of my favorites actually. It's also the drawing system, but it's not as fine of a line. So if I make this on the biggest setting, you can see it's a little bigger. Also the opacity is way down low, so let's put it here. And if I just make a dot, you can see that it's a triangle. And that's something that I really like when sketching personally, especially digitally, because I feel like it helps giving it like a less perfect look, like your lines. Like sometimes, especially with like the default monoline in Procreate, I don't like how round it is. Like it's really hard to make like a pointy tip or join lines together without it being like really obvious where you came from or where you ended that line, because how the line ends, if that makes sense. How I use this brush is actually, like you saw, I have it on lower opacity, and maybe I would make, for this example, like the size really big, and for the eraser I would use the same brush like this. And on my iPad at least, like you can double tap the pen and it will go in between like eraser and brush, and I think that is really useful. I'm gonna pause the clip a little bit. So like let's create like a face here or something. No, let's draw an eye. So like an eye, I would maybe make something like this. And here you can see like that's a very open eye. But like I would sketch like normal. And then to make like sharp points, because I use a very big brush, I go to the eraser and then I like erase where I want more white space. So for example, around here, I think I would do that. And when you do that, you can get that, like this really soft look easily. And usually what I do is if I get like a soft result that I like, I usually don't even use the like line art unless I really feel like I have to, because I like coloring on top of this. Let's add like a little bit of like eyelashes. We don't have to. And I will go back with eraser to make it like a sharper tip, like so. Yeah, I don't like the last lash. Let's keep it like this. It's not perfect, but you can tell that it's kind of an eye, right? I'm running out of storage. Oh, this is stressful. Okay, so that's the sketch. That's what I would use that brush for. Let's go to the next brush. So for this, if I decide to use the line art, which I will probably do in this, or not use line art, we'll see what I do. But usually I change this soft layer to a multiply, and then under that layer, whoops, I color like normal. So let's make an orange eye, and for this I will use the style marker brush, which is the next one. It also has the texture of paper, but it's more like a, so I had a pen called like a Style Fine. I think it was called Style Fine. Basically it's kind of like a Copic marker, but yeah, in Procreate it behaves more like watercolor, but it has the tip at least of the marker that I had. So here, if I color in the eye, you can see that it mixes with the color underneath a little bit. And if I just make like a splotch here, you can see it has like some texture to it and a little bit of let's make it really big so you can see here. That's what it behaves like. But I think it's really nice for coloring like this. You can obviously use like a blend tool as well if you want to make the line, like the edge, a little bit less sharp. And then I will color in this space like this. I don't think it's even visible, but yeah, let's do it. And just for the sake of it, let's make like a shadow here, so maybe the pupil would be a little bit darker and this area would be darker also. Let's redo that. I didn't like the way it turned out. Yeah, I think that's pretty alright. So that's what I would use this brush for. Let's pray that it's still recording. I'm just going to show quickly. The other one, so I have the style marker and the style marker brush. It's basically the same brush, but you know on these brush pens, usually one end is like a highlighter. So this one is the same. And it's a very dry highlighter, just like the brush, but I think that's really nice if you want to like paint in an area. You have like more control because there's less payoff. But the thing that I would use the most is probably the brush pen. I think this one turned out really nice. It's a good like brush for coloring, but also it adds like nice texture, which I love. Then I created, let's use the brush pen. This one is basically the Pentel brush pen. Or that's what I swatched at least to create it. If you remember, like a few years ago, everyone was obsessed with this brush, and I remember Audra Eclair, I think her name is, she used it a lot, and it really inspired me to try it as well, and a bunch of other YouTubers that I don't really remember the names of, but yeah, actually I will pause the recording while I'm talking. So I don't know why, but I was so obsessed with this brush, and it was so expensive, and I ended up buying one because I was so inspired to use it, or like influenced. And I remember like I didn't really love it. Like it was really tricky to paint with, and it still is. But it's one of those brushes that when you start using it, it kind of changes how your art style looks. And I think that's fun because it's like, if I want like a very specific look when I'm painting, I can use this brush and it influences how my art turns out. And I think that's so cool. So I made 3 variants of it because I had so many samples of like taking pictures. So the first one you can see, it's like a regular brush tip. Looks like this. Let's write over here. Let's make it a little smaller. It's the brush pen. And if you press really hard, it gets bigger, and then you can press lighter and it also gets thinner. And if you do a really quick line, it's the same, like to mimic that kind of yeah, how some of it, like when you have a dry brush, sometimes if you do a really quick line, you get less payoff in the fast areas. That's kind of what I tried to mimic. And with this one, if you turn the opacity way up, it gets super crunchy. Like, as you can see, like the edge or like the lip of the line doesn't have any opacity. And I love that personally. You can tweak the settings if you would like. But what I like about this is that if you first do a sketch and you want this like really like flat look, it can be kind of tricky sometimes to paint in between the lines. Or like, not tricky, but it takes a lot of time. And I think this comes from like manga or maybe like animation or something. They use like really crunchy lines, and then you can use the select tool and select the inner area, and you don't have to use any feathering or anything to like stay within the lines, because it will be like pixel perfect almost. And if you want that soft edge after, what you can do when you're finished with your line art is you duplicate the line art layer, you turn on the Gaussian blur and you blur it just a little bit, and then you will get like a softer edge without having to sacrifice like the control of being able to auto select, quick select, if that makes sense. I love this, so that's a tip. Let's pause the video. So yeah, let's use this brush a little. You can see that's one of them. And then we have the brush pen pointy. It has the same settings essentially. The only thing that's different is that if I just make a dot, you can see it has a different shape. So it's easier if you want to, like, I think this one is easier to use, but it doesn't have like the same traditional art qualities to it. So if I, traditional art qualities, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like you get more control, but it also looks more digital because it's like a pointy tip. So it's as if you held the brush straight up like this, more like horizontal, no, vertical. That's kind of how it behaves. I don't like the dynamics of like tilting my brush and stuff to get different sorry, brush pen pointy. And you see it also has this little texture like on the top. I don't like tilting my brush like this personally, so I prefer picking in between different brushes to do something like this. Also, I didn't really know how to set it up. And the last brush pen that I made was the brush pen dry. This one I think had the most like interesting texture as in terms of like brush head, brush tip. As you can see, it's like really wide and it has like different opacities and it looks very like painterly. And let's make it like really big like this. And as you can see on lower opacity, it really has like a dry brush look. Personally, like sometimes when my brushes run dry, maybe this is me not being able to like throw out stuff that is trash, but I really like a dry brush. Like I keep my dry brushes because I think it's really nice, like for traditional art. They're really fun to like add textures to something you've painted. So I like this brush. And if you make it a little smaller, let's do like a oop. It's very sensitive to pressure, like me. Dry. I love this brush, and as you can see, it has the dynamics of like if you make like a quick line, it lowers the opacity, which I think is really nice. If you make a slow and steady, you get more payoff, and you can press really hard and then like let go to get like different dynamics, kind of like a brush pen, which is the idea. And if you really like the control of like getting really thick lines or really thin lines, you can really turn up the size, and it will allow you to like press really hard and then like really really hard and then really thin lines by letting go. And I feel like it behaves as the brush pen traditionally because it has the same like frustrating qualities but also nice qualities that you can sometimes have. So let's paint this eye. like this. Let's do something like this. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but I think it delivers like it reads the way I want, if that makes sense. Like, you can tell that it's a fantasy style eye, hopefully. I think this is also like, it gets me really into the zone when I'm painting with this brush, because it's like you have to focus in a different way. I think that looks good. We're still recording, cool. But we are running out of storage. I'm gonna have to clean up more space. We have the eye now, and I've swatched all of the brush pens. And I think it looks, yeah, you can see that they have different qualities to them. And it's so cool that I made them myself. Like, I'm so happy. So the next brush is a little bit different. It's actually the one that I skipped, that is called Watercolor Highlight, and I am excited about this one, but it has a very niche purpose that I will make another video about. And it's that if you click up here, oh sorry, let's make an add layer above. So let's, let's find add, here it is. And let's make it a clipping mask, which means that it will only draw on top of the stuff that I've already drawn for the eye. And I accidentally made my line art on the same layer as the color, but that's fine. I'm multitasking, so that's why I can't focus. And the way that this brush works is that it changes the color that it uses depending on the opacity. So let's make a separate layer actually. So if I have low opacity or low pressure on the pen, it turns into the color that you actually picked. But if I up the pressure, it goes towards white. And here on this add layer, that's really useful, because then you can like burn some of it and then press harder, and you will get this like white lens flare effect almost, which looks like really fried here, but like if you've seen the like old art for some Pokemon cards, and also like the Kingdom Hearts art and stuff, they kind of have this quality to them. So I'm gonna make videos showing how I would use this brush in that scenario. So let's pick higher opacity and erase here. Oops. Yeah, I think that's good enough. You can see that it's nice for adding highlights. And then I have another one called Watercolor Shadow, and on this normal layer I will show you. And I will pick a dark blue. So let's maybe pick this one, shift it a little bit towards blue. You can see it's a really dark color. Okay, so this one works basically the same, but in reverse, I guess. So if you use low pressure, it gets like, it almost turns into black. And if you do high pressure, it like ups the brightness and the saturation a lot. And that's because, yeah, and I will show that in a different video why I made it like this. But the way that I intend to use this brush is to speed up some of my art process. So if I have this layer on a normal, let's change it actually to an overlay. You can use it to like on low opacity it turns like a little dark, and then with higher opacity it goes towards blue. And it's an interesting way of like shading things that are supposed to look like watercolor or washed art. Washed, I don't know if I mean washed necessarily, but I can't find the words. But like when you want the ambient light to be a saturated, not necessarily darker color than your midtones, this is a brush that could do that. So like sometimes, I don't think it's, maybe it is bounce light. I'm not sure, but like in a lot of these like washed all watercolor pieces, especially from like old retro game art, they kind of have this quality to them. So that's why I tried to mimic. And with these brushes, I was able to paint this simple eye, and I'm really happy about that. I think that's all for the recording itself. Yeah, those are the brushes that I made. I hope you like them. Okay, I've cleaned up some storage on my phone, and now I can record for 22 minutes and then it will be full again. But yeah, this was so much fun. I could probably go on forever about the brushes and how they work and whatever, but the truth is that it was my first attempt, so some of it is not perfect, and I will probably tweak it over time. But it was still a lot of fun. Like, I reflected over it, and I kind of feel like it was like mixed media, but for digital art, which was really refreshing, and it gave me like so many new ideas of things I could be doing with my digital art. Like, I wanna, like, what if I used other textures that are not like typically used, like for example fabrics or like plants or something, to create textures. Like, that would be so much fun. But yeah, it was a fun experiment, and I hope also it inspired maybe you to make something. That would be nice. But other than that, I don't think I have much more to say. Live, laugh, love. Please let me know if you try this also, and send me some tips if you've learned something. That would be fun. And we'll see. I'm gonna try and make more videos, so see you in another video. And like this one, please. Please like this video. Okay, bye bye.